Blue Revolution, I want to introduce a very special guest that I have known for a couple of years here in the political realm. Today with us, we have Christopher Smith, who is the founder of Campaign Engineers and the National Campaigns Director of March On. Chris also has a lot of experience in the political realm. He was the deputy campaign manager for Stacey Abrams, senior advisor for field strategy for Andrew Gillum, and also worked as deputy national field director for Bernie Sanders in his 2016 presidential bid. So, Christopher Smith, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on Blue Revolution.
Well, thanks for having me, Dan. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Always good to be
So,
here.
indeed, indeed. And we've sort of traded appearances back and forth in our various organizations. So it's good to finally have you on. Chris, what are you up to this year? And how are you helping out?
Yeah, so great. Great you asked. So currently I am kicking off our Vote With Us tour with hashtag Vote With Us from March on. We are touring about 14 different cities throughout the Southeast, primarily focusing on making sure that folks can get out and vote safe. March On has a really unique program this year called Voter Protection Corps, whose main goal is to focus on what we call the most vulnerable voting population, and that being mostly 18 to 29-year-olds, folks who are newly registered, and also people of color where voter suppression happens consistently. And this group was really created to kind of be the first responders to that group. We know that educated voters are less likely to be suppressed. And so we basically do trainings to train local folks and out of state folks too, to contact and sort of make sure that we close the information gap so that these voters are not as likely to be suppressed. We know there's still some tactics that people are creating, but we try to prevent and minimize that as much as possible.
So, Chris, if someone in Blue Revolution, one of our members, wanted to sign up and help out with this, where would they go, and what would they be doing once they signed up?
Sure, super great question. So there's a couple ways to do this. There's a couple ways to sort of engage in this process. It's backslash VPC, or there's a voter protection core page there, and feel free to sign right on up. And so once you sign up, what you'll do is you'll be invited to a one-on-one training. The one-on-one training teaches you basically everything you need to know about sort of setting the stage. We teach you basic functions on how to do voter mobilization. The 201 version has a little bit of it about inoculation and misinformation and disinformation. And then the 301 level basically gives you a state level, 301 level version. It's not law school, but it does give you, we make sure that you understand the top 40 questions that you need to know about state election law in the state that you want to participate in. So for any folks that might, have originated from the South or just have affinity to a certain state, maybe went to college there and you want to sort of join in, you can still, join in Voter Protection Corps in that particular group. There is something also really interesting and special that we're going to announce soon, and actually the Blue Revolution group here will get the first taste of this. We are partnering with the Medgar Evers Foundation and Family Legacy, and they're going to basically be so that 301 level version will be the Medgar Evers Legacy. So you'll be the first group in that training class. So this will, and we know the history of Medgar Evers and the work he did around voting protect rights throughout the South. So we're really excited about that.
Chris, which state specifically are you focusing on?
Yeah, so we're looking at the targeted states, primary targeted states. So, we've got Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, we've got Colorado, but particularly down south, we've got Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina. Right, there's a big Senate race there that we are now all super excited about, and this group has done a lot to raise money for. We've got Georgia, which has two Senate races, as well as could basically flip the presidential election this year. We're protecting Alabama. There's a big Senate seat there we want to protect. We've got Mississippi on our list. Actually, we like to sort of choose one or two places off the beaten path to protect. There's an interesting Senate race there. We think that the climate this year could sort of shift maybe Mississippi. The demographics are there. I think I
Yeah,
got all of those. Should be 13 or 14 there.
great. All the big ones there. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, we are March on. Yeah, that'll
Yeah,
work. Yeah.
.org. Yeah, great. And we'll have that up on the screen there too. Chris, what have you noticed this year? I mean, you've been in a lot of campaigns locally, nationally. What have you noticed that's different in 2020 from other years?
Being in the South, I think we are working in southern states particularly. I think I've seen sort of voter suppression tactics happen sort of in a covert way. It's usually kind of, inside baseball, like, inside campaign people know what happened, inside, the other campaign people know what happened, but it very rarely kind of gets to the outside. This year, I feel like it's pretty blatant to some of the things that we're doing. I think it shows the how far they're willing to go to sort of hold on to power. I think they realize that it's waning and their issues are dying. So I think folks on the right are a little bit nervous about where we're going.
I don't think I've ever seen such a consensus around the idea that democracy is on the ballot, and just a
Yeah,
very basic sense of like, I mean, I don't think anyone really felt that way in 2012 or 2008,
yeah,
2004, or 2000. It's just like voting itself is on the ballot. And one of the things that I see universally across all these conversations that we've been having in Blue Rev is just how how powerful misinformation is, and just how this year clearing things up has never been so important. I mean,
yeah.
that's
No, I agree. I 100% agree, and I think particularly on the left, we've done sort of a poor job of sort of adapting to new tools and new technologies. We understand that there are traditional mediums that get messages out, but I think as of right now, I'm pretty sure most of us that got our last breaking news was not from a television. It was probably from Twitter or Instagram or some social media post or even a text. And as we're shifting that demographic, we have to shift sort of our tactics, and I think that's just sort of where we're going to. And I think, so we're catching up and we're understanding, as you pointed out, that misinformation and disinformation is a tactic, it is a tool, it does work. There would probably not be a lot of intelligence agencies if it didn't. Right. So I think that's kind of, where we're at. And we just have to push back on that and make sure that we are telling, real stories from real people kind of in real time.
Chris, I want to give you credit, as we were speaking earlier today about this, but we were trying to think of the 10 Senate campaigns to sponsor this year and to mobilize for Blue Revolution. And we talked on the phone, I think maybe 3 months ago, 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
And you said you really ought to take a look at Jamie Harrison in
Oh,
South
yeah.
Carolina. And I was like, really? South Carolina, super ruby red, Lindsey
Yeah.
Graham forever. And he just raised $57 million. Now, we didn't raise all $57 million, but we did raise somewhere around 6,000, a little around 6,000 there. And that's, for in our eyes, I mean, that's kind of one of the surprising things this year. What insight did you have on that race that made that seem like it was one of the top
Yeah.
two?
Campaigns that, we use a traditional lens to usually sort of identify who we think can win. It's like if you don't come in with money, if you don't come in with a name, then you're kind of written off at the very beginning. And Jamie has been, he knows the state very well. He's been former party chair. He's really, was really strategic in the state and sort of built out the infrastructure himself and sort of put South Carolina in place. Most people don't know that they picked up a congressional race last cycle. That was under his tutelage as he sort of put together his team, that had worked on, numerous presidential campaigns there and sort of the hype that went around South Carolina this year. What I said is I think that South Carolina has its demographics. I think it's demographically ready to be a left-leaning blue state. I just think we've got to put the investments into it. And $57 million is quite an investment in the state to sort of build infrastructure with really smart, intelligent people who can speak to issues and can relate to that state as well as sort of keep their character and things inside. So I think he's I think I don't want to say that he's the perfect candidate, but he's definitely the perfect candidate for this year at the right time.
For sure. Chris, what are some other races that you think might be, whether it's presidential states or other congressional races or anything else that could be surprising this year, a pleasant surprise this year?
Yeah, that's great. So, I was predicting this year would be a wave election, probably back up until June. I think it's sort of where my, the analytics sort of led me to believe. And so I think one of the two states that I sort of were watching that nobody's mentioned yet would be, dark horses would be Kentucky and Mississippi for Senate seats.
Mhm.
I think they're going to be really close. I'm not sure that we pull them off, but they'll be pretty close.
Sort of a traumatic question to ask
Okay.
about an election. And it's kind of a two-part question. Could Trump win? 4 years ago today, Trump had an 11% chance of winning, according to the New York Times model. So I just happen to look at that every day and look back 4 years ago. Could Trump win? And if he did, and I'm only asking this to be educative to our viewers, how could he win?
Wow, great question. I think this is a wave election year for Democrats. My own personal analytics there. Let's see, but how could he win? I think it's in the margins. I think one of the things that I thought was interesting that it's kind of inside baseball that we really don't discuss a lot is while we were winning in the polls, I don't think we counted our votes, and I think those are the two things that you have to do to sort of be inside. When you're doing really good inside baseball, you're matching your poll numbers to you have actual numbers that show this is how many votes we have, and you identify where those people are, and you basically turn them out. And I think that's one thing that the Biden campaign has been really particularly focused on is identifying votes this year. And I think that they know exactly where they stand and how many votes they have identified and where to turn those votes out. And not to sort of not the 16 team. I just think that, I think we felt that we were good. The numbers were 11 points ahead, and so there was no need to sort of really drill down to the details. And like this year, the details mattered, and we're seeing that everywhere from as we just mentioned, the South Carolina race to potentially Kentucky looking good. I think they've been very strategic, particular, and detailed. So I think that's one of the things how to do that. But to answer your question, how can that happen? I think it's just a matter of we don't pay attention to the details. It's the margins. We slightly lose Georgia, we slightly lose South Carolina. Everything is close, and that would be so we have to get out and vote.
Yeah. He's got to get within just, I mean, that's what he did in 16, right? He just got within a little bit.
Just those small
and
margins.
some big speed bumps in the final week, and that's all it was. So, and we're sort of constantly reminding people here in Blue Revolution that, signing up to do work now is, we don't know what's going to happen in a week or two from now. I mean, this is the Trump era. It's 2020. I mean, anything could happen. So, as you said, everyone's got to get out and vote. Everyone's going to get out and work and get out the vote and help other people vote and everything that we possibly can.
Well, election has started in several states already, right? I mean, so that's the point. The election day is already here, technically.
Yeah, election day ends on November.
Yeah, ends on November 3rd.
A happier question. What is the bare minimum for Biden to win? What do we need to do to get Biden to win?
Sure. I mean, I think the easiest path for Biden is to pick up Minnesota and Michigan, right? I think those are his sort of Midwestern, really close themes to Pennsylvania. I think he's been active there. I think if you've seen CNN where he's speaking from currently, most of his events have been in those three states. I think he's shoring up his base and shoring up that victory. But I think they have expanded that field pretty greatly. I don't think Florida was on their map initially, and I think Florida's in play this year. We could set up a good infrastructure going into 2022 for these governor's elections that we came close to winning in 18. So Georgia and Florida are, primarily on their map to sort of build that infrastructure and keep that momentum going, I think.
Chris, I love how you're thinking long-term about this. I mean, that's just so important right now. It's not, I mean, it is going to be, if we win this election, it is going to be a big question of now what, now what for the country, now what for the Democratic Party. That's something that we think a lot about here in Blue Revolution, particularly in some of the states that you're heavily invested in. Georgia. We're thinking a lot about Texas. The age-old question.
Texas. Oh yeah.
The age-old question: when's that going to be a purple state? Because once that does, that will change American politics. And so,
I think it's this year. I think it's 2020.
It very well could be. Yeah, I mean, it's tied down. It's a toss-up as far as and Georgia as well. So, Chris, we're both so busy. I know that a lot of people in Blue Revolution are very busy, kind of, zeroed in on this election. To be quite honest, I barely pay any attention to the news these days. I'm just talking with volunteers and potential voters and organizations and just trying to get all the infrastructure and scribbling this way and that all the time. And I think, for me, it's important to kind of stop and ask the big why. Like what is bringing you, what is sustaining you in politics this year? What are the things sort of behind, even if you don't think about them too much, or maybe you do think about them every day, but what are the things that sort of keep you going right now as we enter this whirlwind of the last, few weeks here of this monumental election?
Yeah, no, great question. I think for me, it's particularly around it's the work centered around the fact that it helps people. I mean, real people. I mean, we've seen this year, protests, across the world around issues that sort of affect, people of color, particularly Black people. But whether the issue is LGBTQIA, right, or whether it's women's rights, or whether it's people of color, I think that government affects lives and it changes people's outcomes. And it gives hope or it takes away hope. And I think sort of what I feel good about is I'm on the battlefield every day, sort of fighting, to bring that hope, at least, my belief of that hope is to better people's lives.
For sure. I mean, and I think that's an argument that we got to make more going into this election and afterwards. Just like politics can be a force for good, government can be a force for good. I mean, I just think we almost just forget that in the sea of darkness we're in, Trumpism and all the rest that we're swimming in right now, and to some degree have always been swimming in American politics. But we just, I just think that kind of almost I don't want to use the word spiritual, but maybe I will, kind of renewal after this election,
Yeah.
you know?
Well,
Uh,
I think so. I think we're definitely going to be in some sort of renaissance. So we'll see where that takes us.
yeah. Well, Chris, you're helping so much, and can't thank you enough for all the work that you're doing this year. It's inspiring. I know that people in Blue Revolution are inspired by this type of work. And folks, we really hope that you sign up for wemarchon.org, and we'll have the link there for you. You'll be helping clarify a lot of the confusion around this election. You'll be helping great folks like Chris get the job done. And we got a lot more work to do. It's like we've been at this for 3 points 9 5 years, and now it's like the final 0.05, and now is not the time to say I did my job. I mean, we all do have to step up. So and Chris, just thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Well, awesome. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, and thanks everybody. Keep up the good work.